Chinese leaders announce new solutions to fix the crisis in Hong Kong. There's just one problem. They've already tried them before. And guess how that turned out. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Another weekend of pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong left dozens of people injured and one man in critical condition. In one shocking incident, a man shouting pro-Beijing slogans slashed 4 people with a knife. And then he bit off part of the ear of a pro-democracy politician. Somebody's been picking up tips from watching old Mike Tyson fights. It's gotten so bad, journalists even wore hard hats to a police press conference in protest of police violence. Stop police lies. Get it? The police did. But the only thing they stopped was the press conference. Anyway, the Hong Kong crisis is clearly in need of a solution. Fortunately, someone's finally going to step in and solve everything. These guys. I'm sure it's going to be the perfect solution. Last week was the 4th plenum. It sounds like some weird astrological thing, but it's actually the annual super secret meeting of the Chinese Communist Party's Central Committee. During that meeting, top leaders put their noggins together and came up with 3 brilliant proposals for Hong Kong. The first of the 3 proposals is that Beijing will support Hong Kong's efforts to, quote unquote, strengthen law enforcement capabilities. That's not exactly a new idea. It's actually a lot like the anti-subversion law they proposed back in 2003. It was called Article 23. Article 23 was designed to prohibit any act of treason, secession, sedition, and subversion by the people of Hong Kong. Basically, it would mean that a bunch of things that were illegal in China but allowed in Hong Kong would now also be illegal in Hong Kong. Things like criticizing the government. The only problem was the people of Hong Kong didn't like Article 23. They were afraid it would be used to crack down on pro-democracy marches and undermine the rule of law. I wonder where they got that idea. So, they protested. Actually, 500,000 people protested, and the Hong Kong government backed down and withdrew Article 23. That's why, as one expert puts it, with last week's proposal, the Chinese leadership is just redoubling its efforts to implement more strenuously a policy that caused the problems in Hong Kong in the first place. Okay, so the first idea might not work, but don't worry. Chinese leaders have a second proposal too. See, as any good Maoist will tell you, the best way to get people on your side is to brainwash them. That's why the new proposal calls for patriotic education in schools to help kids understand from an early age that they should love the Chinese Communist Party. The only problem is they tried a similar scheme in Hong Kong back in 2012 and it didn't go well. People protested. Students led the protests. That included weeks of sit-ins and massive street demonstrations. Finally, the Hong Kong government got the message that the kids don't need no thought control. Though a bit of education and spelling wouldn't hurt. So that patriotic education proposal that fell through 7 years ago, it might not work so well this time either. Alright, so the first and second ideas might be a bust, but don't worry, because the brilliant party leadership has a third great proposal. They plan to change how Hong Kong's chief executive is appointed and removed. What does that mean? There was no elaboration. Oh, so they could mean that Hong Kong's leader gets removed in the middle of the night to an undisclosed location. Okay, probably not. But it does smell a lot like the proposal they had back in 2014. See, in 2013, the Hong Kongers had been promised universal suffrage. That is, they would get to directly elect their chief executive. But then in 2014, Beijing modified that promise, saying, yes, you can elect your chief executive, but first, we get to pick the candidates. Which is like saying, As I promised, you can have anything you want for dinner. Choose between broccoli, cauliflower, or Brussels sprouts. By the way, for anyone watching who finds those options delicious, you're wrong. The joke is that they're all terrible. Anyway, Beijing's proposal about getting to pick Hong Kong's candidates was massively unpopular. Hong Kongers didn't like it and protested. The police met the protesters with some light tear gas and pepper spray, and so protesters pulled out umbrellas to use as shields. This was the start of the umbrella movement. People were so upset that the CCP tried to rig the election that they continued to protest. They set up tents and occupied 3 main Hong Kong thoroughfares. It lasted 79 days. Eventually, police came in and cleared them out, and arrested a bunch of people. Oh, and Hong Kongers never got the right to elect their chief executive. Just a guess here, but Beijing's new plans last week to change how Hong Kong's leader is appointed and removed probably don't include giving the people universal suffrage. All this is to say that the Chinese Communist Party's newest solution to end the current Hong Kong protests involves 3 proposals that are just like proposals that all caused massive protests in the past. So is this one of those things where if at first you don't succeed, try again? Or is it like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? My guess is it'll be more like putting out a fire by pouring gasoline on it, which is either stupid or evil genius. If their proposals push the protests to spiral out of control, Beijing will have no choice but to send in the People's Armed Police to restore harmony. After all, according to this video purposefully released by state-run media, they've been training. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Oh, and now it's time for me to answer a question from a fan who supports episodes like this by contributing through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Anders Anderson asks, how come the Hong Kong police are so loyal to the CCP to quell the protesters and violent? Are they mainlanders? Good question, Anders. So I was in Hong Kong during the 2014 umbrella movement, and then later during the recent 2019 tear gas movement. The police changed in 5 years. In 2014, the police officers were mostly polite. There were a few clashes, and there were a few police groups that were more troublesome, but the main body of police just tried to protect everyone. When I was in Hong Kong last month, it was completely different. The police are out of control and violent. Yes, there are rumors that some of them have been brought in from mainland China. That might explain why they're acting like mainland thugs, but so far, those are just rumors. But either way, Hong Kong police commanders have pretty much given the officers carte blanche to do whatever they want. Plus, they're wearing masks but no ID badges, and there's a law against doxing them. So they have the protection of being anonymous. On top of that, they're overworked and stressed from 5 months of continuous protests. This is a recipe for disaster. It doesn't even require loyalty to the CCP. Thanks for your question, Anders. And thank you to everyone watching. Go to patreon.com/China Uncensored to learn how you can be like Anders and support the show. If you pledge $1 or more per episode, you'll even have the chance to get a question you ask in the hat. Plus, your support helps us pay our staff, travel to Hong Kong, and keep making episodes like this. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.